Hello and welcome to our third Digital Summit Talk. It's the first one in 2021 and I'm very happy to have you all here. We've had more than 900 registrations and I hope that many of those who registered will actually make it here today to be with us on their screens. A couple of words about myself. I'm Katrin Wissmann. I'm an editor with the B2B magazine Foodservice Europe and Middle East, which you see right here. And on my left-hand side, you see today's speaker, Dr. David Bossart. But before I go into details about him and about today's topic, let me share with you some technical advice so that everything runs smoothly today. First of all, you see a chat window on the right side of your screen, and it's there for you to communicate with us. So if you have any technical problems, don't hesitate to post them there. Or if you have questions for our speaker, you can also write them down there. They're not visible for anyone but us, the organizers. So we will be collecting all of your questions. Our technical experts will help you with any technical problems, make sure to solve them so that you can join us and hear and see everything that we're broadcasting. And as I said, we will be collecting the questions that you're posting for our speaker, as we will have a 10 to 15 minute Q&A session towards the end of the presentation. Of course, with so many people attending, we won't be able to answer all questions right here, but we will make sure that all of them get answered via email once this broadcast is over. Also, don't worry about taking notes while you're watching the presentation. My colleagues are recording this whole session, this whole event, and they will share with you a link to the video once this broadcast is over. So just lean back and relax, listen, and when you want to go back to some information that you heard, you can watch the video over and over again. And one more thing, once this whole show is over, you will see a feedback questionnaire popping up on your screen, and we would be very happy if you took a couple of minutes to tell us how you liked our digital talk. And now let me come back to what we're actually here for, and that's the digital talk. It's the third one in a series of informal talks that we're bringing to you in place of the 21st European Food Service Summit, which you all know could not take place in Zurich last year due to obvious reasons because of the pandemic. It just didn't allow it. But for 2 decades, for more than 2 decades, the European Food Service Summit was a great source of information and inspiration to the international food service community. So our aim with this digital talk series is to share with you, the food service industry, significant insights, data, inspiration, information that we hope will be helpful to you in looking and moving forward in these challenging and extraordinary times. And we are very grateful to have educational partners at our side who have joined us in this mission and who are actually making it possible at all. So therefore, let me say a very special thank you to the 4 sponsors that are with us today: Solomon Food World, Nestle Professional, PepsiCo, and Ala Pro. Only thanks to their support can we bring to you and to the entire community this digital talk completely free of charge. And we are greatly thankful, we greatly appreciate it. And since this is a series of talks, we already have the next one planned for you. So save the date for our 4th digital talk, which will take place on April 8th. Now, let me introduce to you today's speaker, Dr. David Bossart. I'm sure you all know him. He founded the European Food Service Summit together with Gretel Weiss many years ago. They were joined by our last speaker, Chris Muller, shortly after. Dr. Bossart was the CEO of the Gottlieb Duttweiler Institute from 1999 to 2020. He's a highly recognized author and speaker, and his focus is on trend research in retail, economic, and social issues. He looks at changes in consumption patterns and behavior, and that's what he's here for today, to talk about the next new normal between hope and fear. We are very happy to have him here. Welcome, Dr. David Bossart. Hello, David.
Das war das, glaube ich, schon, ja. Yeah, here we go. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
now we can. Hello, David.
Great. Okay. Sorry for that. Welcome, first of all, thank you, Catherine. Welcome to all our friends from the European Food Service Summit. Welcome also to all the future customers and future friends of the Food Service Summit, and also a very special welcome to Gretel and to Chris, with whom I founded the summit 21 years ago. Let's be very clear, ladies and gentlemen, we must acknowledge and accept we are by far in the deepest crisis in politics, in the economy, but also in society since World War II. We have to accept that. Otherwise, I think we will not find the receipts to get out of this crisis. What is really shocking is that the winners and the losers are in a complicated way distributed. So it didn't matter whether you did a good job, whether you were competitive, whether you were innovative. No, it was just the industry you're in. And this made the decision whether you're a winner or a loser. And this creates a feeling, a deep feeling of unfairness and of helplessness. And I think this is a very, very important point to understand. Where do we go right now? Can you switch? Oops. Yeah, here we go. It works. All fine. All fine. So when we look at previous crises, we see, first of all, a big difference to 2008 and 9. In 2008 and 9, salaries of employees go down in sectors like manufacturing or in finance. Their pay is above average. But in this crisis right now, those who already are suffering are even suffering more. And it is retail, it is restaurant, it is airline services, events, convention, culture, tourism, and hospitality in general, whereas finance and manufacturing was quite safe. And those who were systemically relevant, the very important kind of systemically relevant people who did risky job, cashiers, truck drivers, delivery services, construction workers, do not get the recognition they deserve because they do give additional risks away for their personal lives. The second point is we are accelerating many trends. One of the most important is labor versus capital. So those who own capital, have assets, are by far now richer than those who have to make a living out of a decent income. This is now going on in a much more accelerated and dramatic way. When you have land, real estate, a lot of stock, you made hell of a fortune over the last 12 months, whereas those who just saved a little bit money and decently lived from what they did in their work, they were clearly the losers. So 20 years ago, for example, a waiter, a restaurant operator, a taxi driver in Berlin, in Zurich, in Vienna, he could buy a house if he decently saved money after 10 or 15 years. This is definitely no longer the case because real estate at coveted places went up dramatically. I give you one very interesting example. Did you know who is the largest owner of private farmland in the United States? It's Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft. He has hundreds of thousands of acres and he owns the best farmland in the United States. If you want a picture of the size of the land he owns is equal to 140,000 football fields of an average German football club in the Bundesliga. 140,000 times football fields. This is owned, best places, by Bill Gates. He's a smart person, indeed, indeed. The third point is, as I already mentioned, those who are hurt most are, for the first time in the Western world since over 200 years, it's the lower middle class. And again, these are people who are not highly skilled, most often not a college degree, to a decent job. For 200 years, for the first time in the Western world, these people are no longer in the top quintile of the income when you look at global income streams. And this will have a major impact also, of course, of issues like equal opportunity for everybody and social justice in general. So this might cause revolutions in Europe in the coming years if we don't get along with these issues. The fourth point I want to mention is the outlook for the young generation. We already see in demographics, when you look at rents, who has what kind of income. For the young, the situation is the worst ever. So according to the US Fed, people under 40 had a 13% share of total wealth in 2000. 13%, which is not a lot, but at least. Guess what it is today? Today, people under 40 in total have a total wealth share of 6%. So it went down dramatically. So we have to adjust and address these issues enormously. And when you look globally, especially people who do the production in agriculture, the number of extremely poor people, those who earn less than $2 a day, went for the first time since 20 years up again dramatically. It was during the first lockdown with 125 million. Today, probably it is the double. And those people will be the last to get the vaccine. Fifth, Goliath versus David. We should not underestimate that the Goliaths right now are the winners. What will happen to the small enterprises will be the big questions, because they don't have the capital, they don't have the cash. Think the big technology companies, think Facebook, Google, Apple, Amazon. Just imagine how they doubled or tripled their market capitalization. For example, take Jeff Bezos. I'm not kidding. If Jeff Bezos gave away $100,000, $100,000, not 10,000, not 1,000, $100,000 to all of his over 1 million employees, Jeff Bezos would be still as fortunate and as wealthy as a year ago, So this is still showing us where the world is heading towards, with more leaning towards assets and less towards valuation of work we do when we do decent jobs. 6th point, education counts. I see again that for the younger generation, it will be very difficult with all the schools closed, when you don't have access to private schools and private teaching. So you get penalized when you are young. You cannot do any apprenticeship anymore, because all is now remote, and remote means cutting out the social part. So the big question is, there is a lot of money now in the market. What the hell are we going to do with that? We should invest in sustainability. We should invest, of course, in the economy. We should invest in most of our workforce where productivity is still very, very low. And also the startup culture is not so strong. We are talking a lot about startup, but most of the startups are more fancy hype than real promising startups. When you look at the output of the startup culture, we are now back in the 70s. So it is much more marketing hype than reality. So in sum, we can say we should learn a lot, and we should use this crisis as something where we can really learn about what's going on. So don't waste a good crisis. We can say we are quite good at ignoring crisis. We are good at forgetting bad things, and we are good at deferring what is important most. So we tend not to listen actively to others. We are not good at really listening at all. We should also look at our stomach, at our good feeling, at our emotions. So data and knowledge and expert knowledge alone doesn't count and doesn't help us to get along. But the crisis also gave us a break. We saw, for example, and this is my great formula I want to hand over to you. We saw in the first lockdown, we can live quite well with running water, with just food available. The Germans say Versorgungskonsum. This is okay. You need a roof over your head. Then you had, of course, connectivity, Zoom. You could order more and more online, a key topic now. You had access to healthcare, but minus everything else. And the question is, what the hell is this minus everything else? We were back in an old self-sufficient economy, and all you need to survive well was there. But we now tend to lean back as soon as we see signs that the old work could come back. I think that is the biggest danger, that we do not the reforms in agriculture, in how we treat people, how we do sales, how we operate. Should we still go for the long haul, the airline industry? Do we still need cheap flights to go to Mallorca? This is not sustainable, and Greta Thunberg will come back one day. So all these questions are on the table. Are we willing to accept and to find new solutions or not is for me the biggest issue of all the issues we have to face. So let me now go through the points I would underline most. First of all, certainly it is when you looked at the economics, you see that what I mentioned, those who were in the winner industry, they had a so-called V-shaped recovery, meaning fast decline, but very fast going up again. Whereas we in the restaurant industry, in the hospitality industry, we have an L-shaped curve, meaning we go down fast and the recovery will be painful and very, very slow, very, very slow. So what does that mean when we look at our mood, when we look at our staying power, when we look at our willpower? What is important? First of all, I would say we have to balance. We need a healthy balance between fear and hope. Fear and hope, these are the most important words. On one side, it is not bad when we have a little amount of fear, because if we don't feel the emotion of fear, we might get arrogant, like the financial industry, or we might get ignorant, which is another great topic we face today. But on the other side, hope should always be the stronger motivator. So hope is very important, but hope and fear are closely interlinked to each other. Interestingly, when you look back over the last seven years already, you see when you look at the Google Trends, the searches, you look at the total amount of searches, you correlate it to the search that goes towards fear or anxious, you see there is a continuous going up of the feeling of fear. So our stomach tells us, no, things will derail. Also, when you look at financial markets. But rationally, we try to find answers and arguments why we should not feel worried. That's very interesting. But these are psychological and motivational aspects we should never, ever underestimate. So speaking about all these issues about fear and hope, we can say what is influenceable, what can we influence, and what is not influenceable. And there you see, you can just draw two axes, hope, fear, influenceable and not influenceable. And you see on the lower right quadrant, influenceable but fear-driven. It is good to have health prevention. It is good when we try to insure ourselves against any kind of risk. But this is anti-negative. I do it to prevent something. But most important, if you do actively hope something, you dream, you are proactive, you are entrepreneurial, and you take a modest amount of risk to have success. So it's very important to see that our key drivers must be we are willing to take certain risks, because you know, when you save money, zero interest, negative interest rates, this will not bring you in an entrepreneurial mood. So step out of your inner self, try to be more active, proactive, and then you see you can influence a lot, even if you're not in the right industry, as probably you have the feeling right now. The other point is we should believe in something. Humans like to believe something. Knowledge alone doesn't make it. And the other point is, if you believe in hope, you really want it. We often say, oh yes, I could, but then you don't do it because you're not taking the risk and you're not willing to be an entrepreneur. I can show you how unconsciously we are influenced by many, many circumstances around us. You can see, for example, the placebo effect. Very interesting, very importantly, this is subconsciously what influences us. And most important is, I will just give you facts and figures to understand emotionally what I mean. Most important precondition is that the placebo effect works. The patient must get the feeling that the drug is going to be effective and efficient. And astonishingly, big pills work much better than small pills. Rationally, it doesn't make sense. Capsules work much better than pills. Doesn't make sense rationally. And multicolor ones work better than white ones, not rationally explainable. And the injections are far more effective than drops. Doesn't make sense, but it works. The physician also, the doctor, plays an important role. You can say the waiter, you can say the restaurant operator, the chef. The more convincingly he promises a cure, the more effective a placebo is. But also his working clothes and medical instruments can provide a sense of competence and security. Should I wear a tie? Do I transfer a feeling of competence when I have a tie or without a tie? These are small details that can have a very important overall effect. That is, I think, should not be underrated. To sum that up, I would argue nearly everything we do in our lives is basically based on hope or on fear. All our important decisions in our life are based on hope. You get married. This is a decision that you're going to have hope in the future of the relationship. Or you get a football fan of Schalke 04. You put in all the hope that this is not a loser team, they are going to win, and you can stick to it with pride. You subscribe a contract. Even if you go to a funeral, this is the hope that the dead person you love will go not to hell but to heaven. So hope is a key driver in our lives, and we need it more than ever in our very special, peculiar times. The second point I would underline is we don't have enough power to represent and to imagine a better future. Like Bregman said it very well, it is not that we don't have it good or not, or even that we don't be less well off in the near future. We don't have the representation and the imagination to come up with anything new. Give you two examples. We do many workshops at GDI about the future of the car, but people imagining the next generation, the new car, as something with a more fancy entertainment system, with a more efficiency-driven drive system, or with just more horsepower and things like that. But no one imagined Tesla until it was there. The same in retail. You just make a rearrangement of the floor space, but you can't imagine that probably in 2 years or 3 years, we don't need stores anymore. This is something that we don't see, And these are things are probably more important. My point here is more important than what you know is what you really believe in. When you try to understand trends, ask yourself first, do you really believe in it? If you don't believe in digitization and AI, you will ignore all these trends because you think they're not important. So what do you believe in and what do you really want is much more important. Just to give you here another example, what do you believe in? So as the saying goes, faith moves mountains. I think that's very true. So again, to evaluate trends, ask yourself, what really motivates you? What do you really? And the belief is always much stronger than data, facts, and all evidence-based figures. If you don't believe in it, forget about it. So 3 questions. If you believe, do you believe that the next catastrophe is already here? You're going to invest in a much different way than if you have hope and think, I can change my personal fortune over the next years. If you believe, well, we have money, the government should spend it, there is free money available at any cost, certainly then you feel on the safe side and you don't believe that we have an inflation risk. Then you're in a completely different mindset. Or on the right side, 21st century power, if you're from the Greta Thunberg fraction, you say, okay, all our investments now must be geared towards sustainable food, sustainable agriculture, sustainable mobility, sustainable energy resources. And then when we have all these infrastructures, we are safe and have a good life also in the restaurant industry. So what do you believe in is highly important. The next very intriguing example I can give you from the markets, do you believe that Tesla is going to win, or do you believe that Volkswagen is going to win? If you just look at the production factors and the sales figures, it's very clear Volkswagen will win. When you look at the market cap, of course, this is just a momentum, but overall the trend is very clear. Volkswagen's market cap was 80 billion, Tesla's 544. A few weeks ago, it was over 650. But when you look at production, Volkswagen produced 11 million cars and Tesla only low 370,000. So if you make the calculus, one Tesla is valued at roughly $1.5 million and a Volkswagen at $7.3 thousand. What the hell is going on? So this shows you, in a world where we depend on social media and self-fulfilling prophecy, Tesla is to believe that the future will be gone to the electric drive. Do you believe in it or not? The second is, yes, technology, battery technology will improve. Do you believe it or not? And the most important is self-driving. Do you believe that the car is rather a software product or a hardware product? Just in parentheses, ladies and gentlemen, analysts, the most famous stock market analysts, predicted the value of Tesla at the end of 2020 at $20 billion US. They didn't believe in it. But Elon Musk was stronger. He could convince all the others to believe in the company. Next point. I think when we look right now, what is the biggest danger? I think it is social problems, especially for the young. It is the decline of trust in any kind of information. I will give you the figures. We live basically in the golden age of ignorance. We can say Trump is still the big winner because Trump made ignorance mainstream. When he saw he has no chance against the crisis, against the pandemic, he said just ignore it. And more and more people are ignoring what's going around them. So you can say, if it doesn't fit your opinion, just quit it, just ignore it. And we know that too much information does not make us more informed. It makes us more confused. So even in everyday lives, when you have to make a decision, you know quite fast what is important and what not. And you know that you're taking a certain risks. So it is not an accident with confusing informations. The second lockdown sees now much more aggressive people than it was the case in the first lockdown. During the first lockdown, you saw an end, but right now we don't see an end. Even with the vaccine distribution, it is a disaster, of course, but we don't see an end. And this makes people even more confused than in the past. So just to give you a few figures, why do so many people believe so much bullshit? In the US, 85% of Trump supporters still believe that Trump won the election. Still believe that today. In France, most people don't believe that vaccines are safe. Only 40% are saying they're voluntarily going to get a vaccine. And also, when you look at the UK, over a quarter of people say they don't really, they're deep, hardcore deniers of this crisis. So what can we do? Slow down, consume less social media, consume no more TV over 2 or 3 weeks. You will be much more calm and much less distracted than what's happening right now. So make ignorance great again. Please don't do that. That is too dangerous. Just to give you a few figures and then go to the final part with the rest of the industry. Trust in all information sources are at record lows. This we have to acknowledge, especially also when we look at search engines, when we look at traditional media, when we look at own media, and also when we look at social media. This is an extract from the very famous Edelman Trust Barometer that gives insights every year about 28 nations, Germany, Spain, France, UK, US, they're all also on the list of the surveyed countries. The coinage is, we are witnessing right now an information breakdown. The other point is, very interestingly, and this gives us hope, those who do locally a good job, look for each other. When you look at rents, you look at people who have real estate, you look how you can do takeaway, ease of regulation. Those who do locally a great job, and those who have internally a company structure that is trustful, you have better chances to thrive than in traditional circumstances where you just wait until regulation occurs. So trust and community building depends on local commitment and local solidarity. Second point, trust and performance depends on company leadership. If the company culture is good, employees tend to believe the company information much more than any other kinds of sources of information. I think that's very, very important to understand. So trust, of course, must be backed by facts and figures, but it is important also to how you communicate all these figures. You must have also the knowledge to emotionally engage people in a way so they can build trust. When you look then, next point, at what the pandemic does to inequities around the world, again, to summarize, we must be very careful. The education of the next generation of the restaurant leaders, we will have to pay them well, and not just what is happening, like the big guys are getting bigger and bigger and the Goliaths are squeezing the Davids out, and how we can deploy the resources we have much more fairly. This is the list. Just I think it gives a good insight what's going on right now. So thus the business models and the restaurant industry. Oops. Does the restaurant industry have a future? I think I heard many comments that we are so deeply in the shit. Does this industry have a future? Ladies and gentlemen, clearly, if you don't see a future, you must act like Jack Welch, manager of the last century who built General Electric. You must do what Jack Welch said: fix it, sell it, or close it. If you don't see a future, you see no hope, and then you're not motivated. You must believe that you have a future with your business. So what we can do is understand the business models, understand what technology does, and how mobility of the consumers are going to change. So of course, we are moving clearly from store to delivery. We are moving the jobs from retail in the store to delivery. When you look also in non-food stores, a lot of people were laid off in non-food sector, but the delivery of non-food marketplaces, they hired people like never before. So as everything is becoming more remote, the jobs are also going to be much more mobile over the next years. The other point is that when we look at the business model, we must, what is now the buzzword, unbundle all the restaurant operations. So you look at the overall operational parts, you cut it into pieces, unbundle it, and put it together in an innovative way. And we see the three most important buzzwords. It's ghost restaurants in a certain way. We already saw it coming, and Chris Muller had a fantastic speech about that. I think every word he said 3 years ago at the Foodservice is still true. Delivery and takeaway. So ghost is estimated by the specialists at a more than $1 trillion business in 2030. Delivery, of course, we see that in food retail, in Switzerland, even convenience stores that have fresh bakery stations in their small stores that serve coffee, that serve sandwiches. They are now going in the delivery business also. So another competitor, not just food retail, not just Versorgungskonsum, but also those who were closer with meal replacement to the traditional ways. They're also entering now the delivery system and the takeaway system. So repurposing the space, I think, is also a good coinage. When you look at the hotel industry, most of the hotel rooms of the restaurant rooms are closed. The kitchen does no longer operate, but they now see a business with in-room dining, delivered directly to in the room, takeaway, support system also what Hyatt does for the very small local restaurant operators. They give away the space for free, and then he or she can operate the kitchen, delivery in room, takeaway, and so on. So local chefs can find an outcome if you have local solidarity and be innovative also on the business model side. The long-term trend was already clear towards these three elements: ghost, delivery, and takeaway. Look at McDonald's. McDonald's is becoming now a technology company. More spaces without seats. It's pre-ordering, it is just takeaway. All you have to do is question yourself, where the hell should I eat the food I just bought? These are now major trends coming. Also Starbucks, more pickup, more takeaway, but no more seats. Is it good or bad? This is a completely different question. My personal view is we are going to cut out the social dimensions of many parts of the restaurant industry, and this is quite a sad thing that is happening. We should, I will not go into details, looking at the clock. Understanding mobility counts. So the first question is, where is 5G going? Because 4G brought us Uber, it brought us Airbnb and Netflix, but we will need much more volume, much more capacity for all the exchange of information when we have sustainable mobility, sustainable ways of doing remote work. Remote production is coming now, more Internet of Things, and more machine-to-machine information exchange. So what if we don't invest in 5G? We will have the infrastructure problem that will be very, very problematic. Then you saw also remote is becoming more important. Remote control, remote working, remote production. Then what is the role of platform capitalism? The big guys are crashing the small ones. When you look at GDP, Switzerland, it is a fourth or less than a third around of the actual GDP, or the actual market capitalization of Apple. Apple is now approaching a market capitalization that equals the GDP of Germany. Do you think that's normal? I don't believe that's normal, but that is the case, and we have to find solutions out of that. And of course, for me, by far, the most important is, what is the role of exponentiality? What is the role of networks, effect, and scale? I call this the Uber stream. Uber has a very simple business strategy. We should understand the basic business strategy of Uber, and then we will understand that delivery will only work when we cut out any human cost, no more human driver involved, and when we have fully automated systems, so full self-driving. This is the end point of Uber. I will briefly comment on that, and then I will go to the end, to the conclusion. It means it is efficiency driven. It's just very, very efficient. The second point is it is security driven. They say a car is a collection of sensors, and the better the sensor, the faster we get towards self-driving. This is the end point. So Uber will break even when we have self-driving and I'll cut out all the human costs in delivery, not before. Meaning we are going to spend hundreds of millions and billions of dollars until we are there. But the money is cheap and the money is there. And people are crazy enough to over and over again to invest money in all these delivery systems. Uber is just the role model, a very, very interesting role model. So the vision of Uber, the original vision was make mass mobility so cheap and so convenient that it is no longer a need to buy a car and to own a car. So cut out all, look at the cost structure, and then you see how step by step you can eliminate step by step take any cost out. So first, they go for the low-hanging fruits, and this was, of course, the taxi business. The taxi business is $120 billion business globally when Uber and Lyft started. Today it is a little bit more, and this just killing this business is the first step. The other one is, at the end point, they go for private mobility, because private mobility is 120,000. It's a $12,000 billion business a year, which is quite different from $120 billion a year. So look at the steps of the cost structure. First is turn drivers into users. So they collect your data, improve all the software, and then you can see how people really navigate. E-mobility, second point, because e-mobility is accepted, it is healthier than just the combustion engine and CO2 emission. The third is carpooling. Uber is already quite advanced. You pool, you can take out cost for the user. But the real point is really when you take out the driver's cost. So when they started, it was about at $2 per mile, and passenger private car is about 82 cents. And then you look at all, you depreciate step by step, insurance, gasoline, etc. So finally, when you see that the driverless cost is at about 45 cents, then you're making a big margin, and this is the aim of Uber. But we not do small robots delivery, small scale, safe streets only, but the final goal is fully operation for autonomous vehicles and really doing that 100%. So final point, polarization of monopolies. Either you're on a platform and you have the cloud business like the big guys and can play with that, or if we're talking about assets, you have land and concrete. This is one of the best quotes I ever saw by Winston Churchill, politician in 1909 already. He clearly understood that he owns land at the right place. He has an asset he can milk over and over again without doing any additional job in the future. So to summarize that, we can say we depend on one side more on pickup, takeaway, repurposing our real estate, but on the other side, it is what the hell will go on with the strong platforms and with cloud, because there all the fine-tuning of the data is going on. Just to give you a last figure, very interesting. If you look at the evolution of real estate and construction cost, by far, when you look the whole Western world, there is a massive amount of studies between 1950 and 2013. Land price development is responsible for 81% of the increase of prices and construction costs for the rest. So construction costs only went up a little bit over the last 70 years, whereas land prices went up a lot. So this is why speculation in cities will not end. It will drive prices up. So you can say real estate business is a mixture of theft and of freedom. The freedom to do what you want, but you are a thief of your customer. Finally, just to end with two pictures, we will see more experimentation, cloud and platforms, automation, repurpose of land and real estate. But remember, we are still in the crisis, so all the good ways of finding out survival kits will be important. And right now, we will see more deployment, more nicely displayed, designed survival kits for the next generation of our customers. This was my brief overview. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, David. This has been a very interesting and inspiring presentation, definitely very thought-provoking. And as you remember, I told our participants in the beginning to write down some questions via our chat window, and several of them have done so. So let's see whether we can answer some of those questions right now. Let's see, we have here a question. It says, all new trends like delivery and takeaway leave out chances for beverages in out-of-home. Where do you see the opportunity for beverages with the new trends?
Well, with every big trend, you see those who try to cover everything, the marketplaces, for example, and those who try to go into the niche. But in the long run, the niches will also be bought up. When you see now in the US, a deliverer was bought who's just sold alcoholic beverages. So I think, again, it depends on what your belief is and your overall goal is. And then you just design the model for you. Meaning, do you want to be a local operator? Then you have to invest very differently than when you want to be a regional, a national, or even an international player. So I think those who want to have clearly an overview of how can I do something in my region will faster be successful, I guess, than those who want to just be the big guy and go for the long run and also need a lot of funding rounds, need a lot of partners. So it depends on what kind of business model you think is appropriate for the products you want to sell.
Okay. There's another one. It says, you say change the perspective. How can I do that when I deal with my staff or in marketing?
When I deal with my what?
When I deal with my staff, with the employees.
You know, it depends how your boss sees marketing. If the boss thinks market is important, you have a chance to influence him. But when I look at the latest figures in digitization, is also now streamlining the processes, and we say, okay, within the processes, marketing is becoming more important. Connectivity to the customer is becoming more important. Don't say I need more budget in the first round. But you say I have great ideas. Give me 2 more weeks time and we will come up with great ideas.
So in dealing with the staff, that's the other one. It's not just marketing, but also when you're dealing with the staff. How can I do that?
Well, I think you need people. When you look, I think in marketing you have a lot of young people, which is good. The average age is quite low. So these are people who are interested in changing the world. So I think the basis in most of the marketing people is good. My point is, don't go just for people who have their certificate and their points from business school. Look also at the diversity of perspectives. Look that you have people with different educational backgrounds, different backgrounds also from what kind of jobs they were in. I think right now to develop good ideas means you have to be a leader in terms of how can you put together the right teams from different backgrounds and make something happen that comes out of that.
Right. Okay, let's see. Here's another question. It says, new work. How can this be a hope for our industry?
New work.
New work.
New work. Well, you mean home, work from home and all these issues?
I guess that's what they mean, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think when you look at all the prediction, how much people are going to definitely do working from home, let's say 3 days a week or even more. It was projected, for example, in the US as a role model, 60% of those who can potentially do it. Now, the newest estimates, I think that has to do with the second lockdown, they are down now at 25 to 30% at the highest. So yes, we will have more people who do remote work, which gives new opportunities to catering to them because they are not all living in urban areas. I think this is the other question. How many people will really constantly move out of cities and go to a place where they are closer to a lake, closer to a river? I don't know what makes it a living for you and what do you think is most important for you, or a garden for kids. So will more people work from home and living in the rural area or not? I'm not so sure. In the short term, yeah, people are leaving New York, true. But in the long run, when they make more money, many of them might go back to the city center. So yes, I think for restaurants, it's a great opportunity to find new customers and to have a multi-channel strategy and say, okay, especially what many restaurants do, by the way, and you know that they try to deliver in a new and innovative way also to people who live in a far distant on a far distance from where the meal is cooked. So in terms of service, yes, I do see more chances for delivery, for pickup, and also for partnership with restaurants and so on.
Okay, I think this kind of connects to another question that we have right here, and it says, you do research in many other areas. Do you have examples from other business sectors and how they make the best of the situation we have right now?
Well, I think in terms of management, I think to be a leader right now, where no one of us has any experience of such a crisis with such a depth, I think you depend on a strong company culture. I think the culture now is most important. That is why I also quoted the trust resources you need these days. So if you want to be a leader or CEO or managing director of a restaurant, you know, sales are down and cash is going out, how can you build trust? That is very, very difficult. So to be a good leader, I think you can find in nearly any kind of industry. Of course, when you're in the bank and when you just reap out the rent, it's easier to be a CEO than in the hospitality industry. So I think, to be honest, without hurting people, to be clear, but without cutting them off their hope. So again, as I said, if you don't believe in the future of the industry you're in, quit it. But I see the long-term trend. If you really want to go for opportunities, I think it's definitely it's more takeaway, it's pickup, it's delivery, it's how do you repurpose spaces. And I think many industries, insurance companies, banks, I don't want to slash them anymore once more now, but they were safe. It was easy to do a job. You had well-heated rooms, you were safe. When you're a bureaucrat working for the government, it's easy to be a leader because your pay and your salary is guaranteed. So I think the feeling that the people need, the feeling that they are fairly treated.
Yes, and definitely a different position to be in the restaurant industry right now than in the bank sector and any other. Here's another question for you. Can you explain more why you think that kit meals can be a success for the next generation?
Who that?
The kit meals.
Kit meal. Well, why? The first point is, in any time of crisis, you see people don't want too much choice. We know that from retail, for example, after the crisis we had after the financial crisis, a lot of people stopped shopping in the large supermarkets or hypermarkets because they saw too many articles they could no longer afford. And the meal kit is a pre-selection you personally do as a choice for your target customers. And people are happy to understand that it makes much more sense when you look at your cost structure, not to offer too many choices, but to go for the volume, go for the quality, and then you can offer a decent price. So I think pre-selection as a service will become more important over the next years. I don't know how the food supply chain might go on over the next years. When you look at Brexit in the UK, you see already signs certain articles are no longer available. In Europe, we are still safe, but for how long? We don't know in the long run. What we might be running out in the long term with climate change is another question. But so having the right choice for our customers, I think, is becoming more important. And when you look at something I deeply believe in is direct sales. Direct sales success factor number one is small selection, circling around one core product.
Okay. Well, there's another question. What role will food service software play in supporting companies getting through the crisis? So yes, I think we are not really very far in digitization. I have the impression the more we talk about digitization, the less we understand what we really want. It depends also the sector you're looking at. Clearly, we need to have the infrastructure that just works. This is the great Amazon advantage. You can blame and shame Amazon. I like to do that too, but basically their business just works. You know that a lot of things they do is crap, but this, what you really want, this element really works. This is why many customers love it, even if it is a hard-nosed money-making
and fast growing company. So the point is, what do I really need? Most of the restaurant software, I think, can be standardized. You don't need to individualize it. So to bring costs down and to have something that is from the point of view of the user experience, be you just in the administrative department, marketing department, it doesn't matter. The most important is easy to use, easy to connect, that it just works. Because the number of people who really understand how to connect the interfaces is still very low.
Right, I hope that answers the question for our participant. Here's another one. Once COVID is over, do you really believe people will stop to go out and socialize?
Well, it depends whether you're a pessimist or you believe in hope. I think we need, intellectually, we can be quite pessimistic. But in terms of emotions and the willpower to believe in something, and then you have self-fulfilling prophecy, it is important to look at what we really want. If you really want it, chances that you get it are much higher as when you always look for arguments why things cannot work. So I do believe that after the crisis, we will have the next crisis will be much tougher. Just look at the pandemics. The pandemics is not an accident. We had, just over the last 20 years, more and more infections, zoonotic infections, how it is called, coming from animals, from swine, from any kind of bats, from birds, from camels, moving to the humans. And with more travel and more international exchange, the chances and the risk factor that we have more infections going up and going up, of course. So we have to prepare for more pandemics. But how do you prepare when you have the same lifestyle like before? This is why you say, either we acknowledge that we are in the deepest crisis since World War II or not, and then we can only react. If you're a pessimist, you say all we can do is just react. Then you are in the anti-negative mood and not in the much more promising proactive mood. And right. In my personal experience, when people are stuck, and they are just going step by step with the back towards the abyss, they will not be willing to accept anything, and then they become more aggressive than ever. So understanding that people must have a margin to act and to actively manage their own lives is key.
Right. Well, I think our time is almost up. Let us have one last question. And it is, how far does the third place concept, which we all know very well, how far does it still support our business after the COVID-19 crisis?
Yeah, that would be the next very, very interesting topic about places and spaces, how we use places. And I think the idea of the third place just collapsed. It's no longer existent. What is important right now is work from home, and the time I spend at the office or at the place where I do work or where I did it most important. So the mindset of people is already, when you think in terms of food, that is well researched. Within 5 minutes, what do I have access? 5 minutes by foot, by bike, walking or bike, from the place that is framed in my head to the place where I can get food, any kind of food or takeaway, or what can I get within 5 minutes delivered at where I am. But this is now 2 places, not 3 anymore. I think we have to reinvent that.
Well, thank you. I think this has been a lot of information. I think we've got a lot of positive messages from you. It's telling us keep looking on the bright side, be hopeful, look for the hope, look for the perspectives that are there. If you want to look for them, they are there. Thank you for your insight, David. I think we've all learned a lot, and it's been a pleasure having you here.
Pleasure, thank you, and good luck with your business and good luck with your families and friends. All the best.
Thank you. And I hope you, our audience, have also had a chance to gather a lot of insights and impulses. And again, all the questions that we have not been able to answer right here, and many, many more came in after we were starting the Q&A session. They will all be answered by email afterwards. And please do answer the feedback questionnaire that will show up on your screen once this broadcast is over. And last but not least, save the date for our next digital talk on April 8th. It will be again at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that time we will welcome Mario C. Bauer of the Piano and Walter Seib of HMS Host International. Their topic will be the road to the future, the food service world after COVID-19. Until then, stay safe and healthy, and goodbye.